Hi, I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down, brand new documentary for HBO, Very Ralph. Susan Lacy's here with us. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
How's everything going?
That's great.
Pretty interesting going into this guy's life, right?
Yeah, very interesting. His story is a lot deeper and richer and more complex than I realized when I started the film.
So you were just telling me off camera you didn't really know a ton about him. How much did you actually know about Ralph Lauren?
I think I knew about him what most people know about him, or if anybody knows anything. They know he was born Ralph Lifshitz. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the first thing anybody says. Yeah. You say, I'm doing a film on Ralph Lauren. Oh, you mean Ralph Lifshitz? In the Bronx. He started with ties, and he built a global multi-bajillion-dollar business.
It's pretty wild how it all popped up
and making pretty clothes.
Yeah. But we really get a glimpse into who this guy is as a man. Like, even going back to the whole tie thing, like you have that one part in there with Bloomingdale's, and he was ready to just walk away from everything. So what was most interesting to you about him in those earlier parts of his life?
Well, just about everything, actually. The fact that he had no training.
Yeah.
He put on his first fashion show before he'd ever been to a fashion show.
That's crazy. Yeah.
That he had the courage to walk away from what could have been a very cushy situation financially when he didn't have a penny in the bank, because he didn't want to give up his name on the label, and he didn't want to compromise his design. And I think that's who Ralph is. That's a Ralph that's been that same Ralph since then. You know, doesn't compromise, has a very strong singular vision, and a very healthy ego. And I don't say that in a negative way. You have to have a healthy ego to become that kind of person. To become that famous, to kind of build an empire, you have to trust your instincts and believe in yourself.
And he almost lost the business too, which seems to be like a constant story with a lot of these different people, like Phil Knight with Nike. He almost lost his business, but like he found a way to do it. What was it like unpacking his resourcefulness and making it all happen?
Well, I was very moved by, I mean, he did lose his business.
Yeah.
And because he didn't have a business background either. So he kind of grew too fast and had his eyes bigger than your stomach, sort of thing. Yeah. And then he just couldn't stand it. As he said, I couldn't bear to tell my father that I lost my business. So he said, I'm going to get it back.
Thank goodness for Bloomingdale's, right?
Yeah, I'm going to get it back. And he got it back. And yeah, I mean, luck plays a part in all of this, in everybody's story.
Totally.
Somebody who believes in you, Marvin Child believed in him out of Bloomingdale's. I don't know that kind of thing would happen again today.
No, definitely not. Not on that individual level like that.
No, I really think that made a big difference. And he had a very supportive wife. Ricky had said, are you kidding? We don't have any money. I mean, they were living with a mattress on the floor. Didn't you find that amazing?
Yes, that was really interesting. I mean, the humblest of beginnings for them.
That totally, absolutely floored me. And that they were so happy. And I mean, there's even more stories. And they went to vintage stores and found these, $5 furs, put them around, and staying up all night and gilding the frames of the windows, and then having a turquoise Princess telephone, which he was so proud of.
Wow.
He said, I couldn't imagine I ever had that, but we loved it because it was so modern. And they had 2 orange director's chairs, and I could not find a way to get that in there because it was done from different interviews, and I couldn't make it work sound-wise. But I could imagine this apartment. And then where the idea of dream boards started was there. Put up your dreams on a bulletin board. And it was the beginning. And he has stayed with that idea of, I don't know if you remember the opening of the film.
Oh, yeah, all the different cut shots that you have.
Yeah, but also those beautiful tableaus that we made of, many of them drawn from his own, shooting it off the wall practically, of how he would put images together and things, and a piece of fabric with a glove, and he started that really early in his life. The thing that was difficult is I had the story. I had Ricky telling me we would put up our dreams on this board like Bugatti. I can't remember what car it was actually.
Yeah, he was a big car guy.
Yeah, but they put a Morgan.
Okay, right.
That's what she said. We put a Morgan up, and of course he ended up having a Morgan and all that. And then I had to put myself into the mind of Ralph Lauren to figure out what else he would have put up there.
Right, yeah.
Because I would say, what else did you have on that board? And he couldn't remember. Things we thought were beautiful, you know, a place we loved, a house we loved, an image we loved. So it was I thought, you know, it's like being Freud. You know, what would he have put up on that board?
And the way that his mind worked, I mean, he was going in all different directions.
But we created that.
Yeah, and, that's really cool you guys did that.
Yeah, and I kept waiting for him. I mean, he only saw the film right before it was finished, but to say, I wouldn't have put that up there. But he didn't.
Well, that's good
that
news,
was
right?
Good.
Well, I thought it was cool the way you guys discussed and really drew out this whole storyline about him being a cinematographer in a different life. And
well,
how
a director, really.
And a director, right.
You know, he says, I write through my clothes.
Right.
He really did have fantasies of being in the movies. That was true.
He had that mind. I mean, just even like what you talk about throughout about playing these different characters, like the Sinatra thing with the music. Like, what was most interesting about like these different character roles that he played?
Well, that there were so many of them,
There
and
really
they were
were.
So varied, and he found a way to embody them all. He was Cary Grant, he was Fred Astaire, he was John Wayne, he was Steve McQueen, he was Paul Newman. I mean,
there's
you know.
so much more than just this guy. It's so much more than just Polo, and that's how he gets identified in so many circles.
Yeah.
But yeah,
you know,
the Steve McQueen thing too. Yeah.
And he really does drive those cars.
Wow. Yeah.
I saw it with my own eyes. In fact, in Colorado, we wanted to shoot him, you know, driving down the highway, and I think it was a Lamborghini. I mean, you wouldn't believe these cars.
I can't even. Yeah.
I think one of them is worth, I don't even want to say. Don't even want to say.
A lot.
And so we had a drone, and the Colorado police shut down the highway for us
so that
we could shoot Ralph zooming on this road, and it's in film.
That's awesome.
We had a drone up there. It was really fun. He really does drive them.
Have you shut down a highway for production like that before?
I don't think so. I think this might have been
Good first time for that one. That's incredible. So one of the other cool parts of the doc is all the different people that you have in there. The one Tom Brokaw quote when he was like, he's a cultural force, right? Those were the words?
Yeah.
When do you think Ralph realized he was a cultural force?
You know, I don't know that he ever thought about it that way. He wasn't a guy who had a master plan and who laid it out. Oh, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, you know. He really went by his gut, and he made the things that he wanted. Not only in the clothes that he saw in the movies, you know, the double-breasted tuxedo jacket that Humphrey Bogart wears in Casablanca, which he couldn't find, so he makes it. It's a whole environment that he wanted to create based on what he saw in the movies. The movies were a huge influence here. He wouldn't have known about these things without the movies. He wouldn't have experienced them. And I love the comparison between him saying, the movies showed me worlds I would never have seen, to Thurston Howell in The Lowlife saying, wearing Ralph Lauren clothes was like knowing there was another stop, there was a way to go besides the last stop on the train. Those are similar impulses.
Yeah, totally.
And I was very drawn to that idea, kind of both outsiders, and how do you create your place in America.
And how that can universally connect to people from totally different ends of life.
Exactly.
And all over the world, too. I mean, here's a guy from the Bronx, and he can go all over the world, and people know his stuff.
It's amazing,
It
isn't
really is.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
But he also wanted to be the star of his own movie.
Oh, totally, yeah.
And he said, I want to be the star of my movie, and he made himself the star, and he made himself the director, and those ads, those cinematic movies that he was making, they were completely original. Nobody had ever done that before. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite lines in the movie is Bridget Foley when she says he did a lot of things before they were things. I love that.
That's spot on.
It's spot on.
Yeah.
He did a lot of things before they were things.
Even like putting himself in his own ads.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
nobody was doing that. You know, that one part where you have like just the house, right, the country house, and it's just like, yeah, we're just gonna leave it, nothing else. You know, just taking those risks.
It's a barn.
The barn, right?
It's the barn and the fence, and it was his idealized image of a America that he really that he wanted to connect to. It was America he saw in the movies.
Right.
And it was what Bruce Weber says, the bravest thing he ever did. Because there's no models in it, there's no clothes, there's nothing. It just says Ralph Lauren Country. Very small in the bottom right-hand corner. And I think that was a story that struck me. I mean, I wanted to make a thing out of that. And then, of course, at the end of the film, tried to recall that impulse when he says, his mother says, why did you have to buy all this? What do you need this for? He said, well, we just really wanted that barn.
It's funny how that works, right?
Funny how that works.
What will be the most surprising thing for people when they watch this and learn about this guy?
Well, I have a feeling that it's going to be as surprising to most people as it was to me. Now, people in the fashion world may know some of this, but the fact that he was a pioneer in so many ways, that he was the first to do so many things, the first to have cultural diversity on the runway and ads, the first to have a store within a store, the first person to have a freestanding store, first designer who understood branding. Yeah. I mean, Calvin Klein says it very clear. The rest of us were thinking about our next collection. He was thinking about his brand.
Ahead of the game on that one, for sure.
He was ahead of the game on all of it, actually. And but I think another thing that will be really surprising to people is how funny he is. And how what a cut up he is. I mean, that really. I saw these home movies and I was like, oh my God, this is still. And it took a little while to get Ricky comfortable with my having these in the film. But I thought, this is a side of Ralph that if you are not in his family and you're not there having the pancakes and doing the orange juice in the morning, you're never going to see. Yeah. And I was very, very happy to be able to show that in the film. I also thought it was funny. It was a fun section to do.
Oh yeah, totally. All the personal stuff is great, but like also seeing him in work mode was really interesting too. Just like dealing with the different models, going through all the different clothes. Like we actually got to see how he makes his decisions.
Exactly.
Like
and
what was the coolest part of that?
That was not
I'm sure
easy.
You had to push a little bit to say, Ralph, come on, open the door. We need to show this.
I really had to push because, first of all, almost one of the first things he said to me, by the first conversation we had is, you don't control this film.
You're like, okay, great
gulp,
start.
Gulp, gulp. And the second was, I really like all that behind the scenes. I like to maintain a little mystery and a little magic. And so I didn't immediately push for it. I said, Ralph, I am so inspired by the fact that you go to work every day and that you are doing this work. You gotta let me show it. You gotta let me see it, because other people will be inspired by it too. 50 years later, you're just as concerned about everything as you were.
Every little detail.
Yeah, every detail. And a lot of it was probably a little bit of vanity. He kept saying, why don't you just use all that early archive footage where I'm much younger? And I said, because of this. People are gonna be inspired by that. And I don't think he's sorry now that he did that. I mean, it's a really big part of the film.
Oh, yeah.
To see how he built to that collection.
Totally. What do you think are some of the challenges he faced? Because I look at his life and I'm like, it's almost picture perfect at times with the business and the family and all the different friends that he has. What are the struggles that he's had, and what are some of the things that have really
Well, he did almost lose his business.
Well, there's that, of course. But even at the end, you mentioned the fact that people have come and gone with the company, and he's trying to figure out...
Well, he went public.
Right,
and
figuring out what's
difference.
next for the business.
And that made it, and he was concerned about it.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to be able to maintain the kind of creative control and vision and not be dictated by the marketplace. And once you have shareholders, you have a different story. Then you've got people to account to. But I think, the way I handled it was showing the headlines of so-and-so comes in, so-and-so leaves, so-and-so comes in. And Anna says it better than anybody, Ann Winter. She says, if you try to get him to do things a different way, he's happy with the way he's done things. He's satisfied with it. It worked. He's not getting off that train. And so he has managed to maintain, I think, the things he cares about in his business, even going public. But he said everything's a gamble. Sometimes you're going to hit it right, sometimes you're not. So finding that right mix of people. I mean, many of the people who are with him have been with him for several, like 50 years. Decades,
yeah.
I mean, Buffy's been there since really the beginning, and she's wonderful in the film, don't you think?
She is. She's great. Yeah.
So I'll tell you the biggest challenge in the film was how to make a film about a fashion person who doesn't do any of the traditional things that fashion designers do. He doesn't sketch, he doesn't draw, he doesn't sew, He doesn't trade. No phantom thread here. And how do you show that process? How do you get behind it? How do you explain what his creative process is when you have nothing to really show?
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to show accessorizing and picking the models and putting the outfits together. It's really hard to illustrate how a man who is stimulated by so many things and how just a thing, a color, will set him off. He'll see somebody on an elevator in a certain shade of yellow and he'll go, I love that yellow. I'll do something with that yellow. I mean, it's just really hard to how do you illustrate that?
Yeah.
So the movies helped. I mean, the movies helped tell the story in a lot of ways. It was a connective tissue of how the movies inspired him, what he saw, how he then wanted to embody that, how he created many of the things he saw in the movies, then how he became his own director and he became his own storyteller and he became his own star. I mean, that kind of helped
Totally.
in the structure of the film. But I think that was the hardest thing, is how to put a cultural context around it. And for that, I needed really smart people who could talk to that and who have been, thinking about these kinds of things and could put it in a context. Not only why he did it, where it came from, but what did he tap into? Why did people want it? And that's a kind of, there's a certain longing that I think a lot of people have, and they don't even know it. They don't even realize they have a longing for this simple barn, or they have a longing for the life that you're seeing play out on the lawn, the rolling lawn with the dogs. Paul Goldberger is so good in the film, and he says, you could kind of make fun of this. You could.
Sure.
You could. It could be, an object of scorn in some way. Not scorn isn't the right word, but really, there's nothing ironic about Ralph and his approach to this.
No.
He is truly there. He truly believes this. It's a life he's created. It's a life he lives. And I think he understands that people want a lot of that kind of life.
You spent a ton of time deep diving on some of the most incredible people in our culture, Jane Fonda, Steven Spielberg, Ralph. Is there a connective tissue between those people?
Well, and the many, many other films I made at American
And of course, but those are the three that pop out right now.
Connective tissue. They're all different, obviously, and every film is different. I am not a cookie-cutter filmmaker. Every film is entirely different. It's not. I won't mention other series that seem to make the same film about the same, different people, but they make the same film.
There's definitely the formulaic ones out there. That's not your style.
No. But if I had to say there's a connective tissue, I would say that, well, obviously, and this sounds so corny, but a good, healthy self-esteem doesn't hurt. Having a strong vision and believing in that vision and staying with it no matter what. I mean, I did Leonard Bernstein, which is one of my favorite films. And this is a man who was the most adulated conductor of his time. He was a superstar. He was as famous as John F. Kennedy. And he wrote West Side Story, the music for West Side Story. And but what he really wanted was to be taken seriously as a classical composer. He really wanted to be Gustav Mahler. And it killed him that he was not recognized for that. And it was like, well, you're just making your music's too melodic. This is not the time. This is an atonal time. And he says, I tried it, and then, I just forget it. That's not who I am. I am who I am. And I think that is a common thread. I am who I am, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to listen to the marketplace. That doesn't mean you're not going to be successful in the marketplace, but that's not what's driving it. And that was true of Steven Spielberg, too.
Yeah.
He didn't know when he did Jaws it was going to be. He didn't know.
No, definitely not.
When he said, I'm going to shoot it on the ocean, and I don't care, and even though I don't know anything about the ocean and the tides and the changing light and all that, it has to be shot on the ocean or it won't be scary.
No, you had to do it that way. Yeah, totally.
So, I think that's it. It's like you stick with it. You stick with your belief in yourself and a vision, no matter what. And what makes these stories so amazing is, in many cases, it is about overcoming something.
What did Ralph overcome?
I don't think Ralph had as many overcomenesses as, you know,
Sure,
say,
as some of the others.
as like Jane Fonda,
Yeah,
who had this,
absolutely.
you know, horrible, brutal childhood. I mean, you can't say brutal, it's Hollywood
But
royalty.
just rough childhood.
But it was rough
Yeah.
childhood. And Leonard Bernstein, whose father said, you can't become a musician, you'll end up playing klezmer music. Go into the beauty supply business with me. I mean, you know, I think that Ralph didn't have that same thing, but he did have to overcome a middle-class background, you know,
Sure.
Bronx background, and kind of embrace a different world. And it's such luck that that everything kind of worked out in a
Yeah.
way. He might have had a wife who said, "Are you kidding me?
No, Ricky was, I mean, a rock
Are you
star.
kidding
with
me?
that
You're gonna walk
stuff.
away from Bloomingdale's? No. You know, he couldn't. He might have had Marvin Traub, you know, who believed in him and helped him out at a critical moment. And all these things might not have happened, but the point is he took a risk.
It worked out.
And he was a risk taker pretty much in everything he did.
Yeah, even with people of color coming in and just women in general, he was extremely inclusive at a time where that was certainly not happening.
And in building a big freestanding store 2 blocks from Bloomingdale's.
That too.
As Bridget Foley says, it was audacious. It was
I'd say
audacious,
so.
and it was audacious. So I don't think he had the. I think he didn't have a horrible childhood to overcome. I don't think he had. I'm doing something entirely new, so I have to overcome tradition. Let's say like Jackson Pollock.
Sure.
You know,
Right.
that kind of thing. Not that. But, you know, finding a way to take the things that he liked and loved and make them a part of the American zeitgeist, that's not the easiest thing in the world to do.
That's quite a challenge. Yeah.
You know, and I just think he was very smart about it, the way he. But I don't think it was like, okay, I really don't like the way my clothes are displayed. People are not getting the full story here, so I'm going to make a store within a store, and then I'm going to have my own freestanding store.
Crazy.
And you know, so that my story is being told the way I want it to be told. And then I don't like the furniture that's available to me. I want to make my own. And I mean, I love when Andrew, his son, says, you know, it's like his houses were kind of like laboratories. Like, you know, I need napkins.
He's like, all right, cool, let's do it. Pillows? Yep, we're good. Let's make it happen.
Now, he's also an astute businessman.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
that part does not escape this combination, but that combination in his world is very, very rare. And I believe I am right when I say he and Armani might be the last 2 fashion designers running the companies that bear their name.
It's a different time, yeah.
Over 50 years.
Yeah,
So it's pretty incredible.
really incredible. This documentary is incredible. Susan, thanks for coming in.
Thank
Really
you.
nice